Thought Reflection 0602-26, The Doorway of Perception. What if the greatest prison humanity has ever created is the belief that its perception of reality is reality itself? Every human being experiences the world through a lens. That lens is shaped by culture, education, family, experience, beliefs, fears, hopes, and countless influences that often go unnoticed. Over time, the lens becomes so familiar that it is mistaken for reality itself. Yet perception is not reality. Perception is how reality is interpreted. This distinction may be one of the most important realizations a person can make. Throughout history, humanity has repeatedly discovered that what once appeared certain was only a perception. Entire civilizations have built their understanding of reality upon assumptions that later generations would question. At every stage, people believed they understood the world as it truly was, only to discover that reality was larger than the model they were using to describe it. This pattern continues today. Science seeks to understand reality through observation and experimentation. Philosophy seeks to understand it through reason and inquiry. Religion seeks to understand it through meaning and purpose. Spirituality seeks to understand it through direct experience. Mathematics searches for underlying patterns. History attempts to reconstruct what came before. Each discipline offers valuable insight, yet each approaches reality through a particular lens. The challenge begins when a lens becomes a prison. A map can be useful. A map can guide a traveler across an entire continent. But no map is the territory itself. Reality is always larger than the model used to describe it. The moment a map is mistaken for the territory, curiosity begins to fade. Questions become uncomfortable. Exploration slows. Possibilities are dismissed before they are examined. This tendency appears everywhere. It appears in science when theories become assumptions. It appears in religion when beliefs become unquestionable. It appears in history when interpretations become facts. It appears in politics when identity becomes more important than understanding. It appears in everyday life whenever a person assumes their perception is the only valid way to see the world. Yet experience continually suggests otherwise. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with entirely different understandings of what happened. Two cultures can inherit the same history and tell completely different stories about it. Two researchers can examine the same evidence and arrive at different conclusions. The event remains the same. The perception changes. And when perception changes, reality itself appears to change. Perhaps this is why so much conflict exists in the world. Not because people live in different realities, but because they assume their perception of reality is the reality everyone else must accept. Once that assumption takes hold, curiosity gives way to certainty. Questions give way to conclusions. Exploration gives way to defense. The walls begin to form. The irony is that most of humanity's greatest discoveries began with someone questioning a perception that everyone else accepted. Someone questioned the shape of the earth. Someone questioned the movement of the planets. Someone questioned the nature of disease. Someone questioned the structure of matter. Someone questioned the limits of human consciousness. Progress rarely begins with certainty. It begins with a question. What if? What if history is more complex than we imagine? What if consciousness is more fundamental than we realize? What if ancient cultures understood things that have since been forgotten? What if reality itself is larger than our current models allow? The purpose of these questions is not to replace one belief system with another. It is to remain open to the possibility that every model is incomplete. Perhaps the greatest obstacle facing humanity is not a lack of information. Never before has humanity had access to so much knowledge. Libraries, databases, universities, research institutions, ancient texts, oral traditions, and global communication networks have placed more information within reach than at any other point in history. Yet information alone does not create wisdom. Without discernment, information often becomes noise. Without curiosity, information becomes dogma. Without humility, information becomes identity. And once identity becomes attached to a perception, growth becomes difficult. A person who believes they already know cannot learn. A civilization that believes it already understands reality may stop asking the very questions that lead to discovery. Perhaps this is why perception matters so deeply. Perception shapes not only how humanity sees the world, but what humanity believes is possible within it. A civilization that sees itself as separate from nature will build one kind of world. A civilization that sees itself as part of nature will build another. A civilization that views consciousness as an accidental byproduct of matter will ask different questions than one that views consciousness as fundamental. The perception determines the direction of inquiry. The inquiry determines the discoveries. The discoveries reshape perception. And the cycle continues. Perhaps this is part of humanity's evolution. Not merely the accumulation of knowledge, but the expansion of perspective. The remarkable thing about perception is that it is not fixed. Human beings possess the ability to change the lens through which they experience reality. Sometimes this happens gradually through study, contemplation, travel, or exposure to new ideas. Sometimes it happens through hardship, wonder, love, loss, or profound moments of insight. Occasionally it happens in an instant, when a long-held assumption suddenly gives way to a larger understanding. What was once invisible becomes obvious. What once seemed impossible becomes conceivable. The world itself appears to change, even though the change occurred within the observer. Actors understand this principle perhaps better than most. To fully inhabit a role, an actor temporarily adopts another perspective, another identity, another way of interpreting the world. The character begins to influence how they think, feel, and respond. In some cases, the experience becomes so immersive that the actor must consciously work to return to their previous frame of mind once the role is complete. This reveals something profound about human nature. Perception is not merely something that happens to us. It is something we participate in. Every belief embraced, every assumption questioned, every new perspective explored has the potential to alter the lens through which reality is experienced. Over time, these small shifts can fundamentally transform how a person relates to the world. Perhaps the same principle applies not only to individuals, but to humanity itself. Entire civilizations operate through shared perceptions. Cultures inherit stories, assumptions, values, and models of reality that shape what is considered possible. When those perceptions change, civilizations change. New questions emerge. New discoveries become possible. Entire worlds of understanding that were once hidden suddenly come into view. If perception can become a prison, it can also become a key. The moment a person recognizes that their current perspective is only one way of seeing reality, the walls begin to soften. Curiosity returns, possibility returns, exploration returns. The prison door may not be locked at all. It may simply require the willingness to look through another lens. Not learning more facts, but learning to see reality from more angles. Not replacing one certainty with another, but becoming comfortable with the possibility that reality may always be larger than the stories told about it. If that is true, then perception is not a destination. It is a doorway. Every new perspective opens another doorway. Every question reveals another horizon. Every answer becomes the foundation for a deeper question. And perhaps wisdom is not found in finally possessing the truth. Perhaps wisdom is found in realizing how vast reality truly is, and remaining curious enough to continue exploring it. Because the moment humanity stops mistaking its perception for reality itself, the prison door may have been open all along. Haggis, my esoteric journey.